Most people think of Tesla's Optimus, or Boston Dynamics Atlas, or of course one of those new humanoids from Figure, where the market is growing more than 30% a year and on its way past $100 billion within the decade when they think about investing in robots. The demand for humanoid robots has not even begun. And lots of individual parts in these robots, like actuators, motors, gearboxes, and wiring, the AI brain everyone obsesses over is only about 6%. About 2/3 of the cost is for getting the robot to move in its joints and in its hands. That device has quietly become a matter of national security. Build one without Chinese components, and the cost jumps about 3 times from $46,000 to $131,000, with China controlling almost 90% of the world's magnet processing. And every motor that's in those machines has a powerful magnet in it. And that is why the United States is intervening directly, where DoD is now America's biggest shareholder in the world's leading magnet maker, with its price locked in for a decade or more. So it doesn't really matter who wins this case. All parts makers are going to win. Some of the names are already running really hot, and they belong on a watch list. And then there are a few that are still priced really well where you might want to get in. But again, the build-out and the demand for humanoid robots, it hasn't even begun. This is the ground floor, at the very start. And the whole point of this video is to give you the framework and the key names you're going to want to watch out for, where you might want to buy a bunch of them at the right time. So like I said at the beginning, humanoid robotics is growing about 30% per year. The fact is, we've never seen these before. There has been no demand. We're going to start this with Timken, ticker symbol TKR, a 125-year-old bearings maker, through 2 businesses called Cone Drive and Spinea, where they make the precision gears at the heart of a robot's joint. Next is the strain wave reducer, the cycloidal reducer. One of those 2 kinds of gears drives almost every sophisticated robot joint on Earth. Timken is the only US-listed company that makes them all in one place. Those gears are already shipping in real volume into industrial robots, the arms that work on factory floors and medical devices, defense systems, and solar trackers. Today, this is a proven, profitable business. But a humanoid needs those same 2 gears in its hips and its shoulders and its knees. So at the humanoid scale, Timken already makes the part they need. Which brand wins out again at the top? Over the past decade, Timken's revenue has climbed about 60% to $4.6 billion. That growth is driven by its industrial motion division, the side that makes these robot gears. That's now up to $1.5 billion a year, or about 34% of the whole company. Meanwhile, the business was growing, and management was reducing the number of shares by some 28% from $98 million to $70 million. So every dollar of profit is going to be shared among a lot fewer shares. Adjusted earnings are expected to rise nearly 20% to about $7.21. So a run like this, and the stock is really sitting near the top of its 10-year range. So it belongs on a watch list given the demand at the moment. But again, it's probably going to start kicking in here shortly once the rest of the robots get going. In the one most limited part of the robot, the joint itself, Timken is the only American name that already is selling it. Now, the only 2 companies in the world making these gears even better than Timken are Japanese, and you can own both over the counter. That just means they are traded here as foreign shares. They are thinner and more spread out, so you may want to use a limit order and keep your size sensible and buy through brokers that offer over-the-counter stocks. Sorry, Robinhood isn't included. First is Harmonic Drive Systems, the inventors of the strain wave reducer, still dominant at the high end. You can use 20 to 30 of these per humanoid. The second is Nabtesco, which controls about 60% of the cycloidal reducer market and already supplies the world's biggest robot arm builders, Fanuc and ABB. They are the best in the world at what they do. That is why Timken is important. It's the only American name that gets you both gears, the rarest, most valuable pieces of the whole robot, into your portfolio on a regular exchange at least. Another manufacturer of the complete joint in a single piece is Regal Rexnord, ticker RRX. One company is making the servo motor, the micro motor, the ball screw, and the precision gear that together make up a robot's joint through its motion brands under several names. Where every other pure play is selling one piece, Regal can sell the whole thing to a humanoid from a single supplier. That stack today makes its living in factory automation, aerospace, medical, and packaging. So it is a real cash-generating business and not a promise. That's what a humanoid joint is going to need next. On a trailing earnings basis, Regal is rated expensively at nearly 49 times earnings. But that number is an accounting mirage that I like to bust. The deal is structured to hide the real earnings of the company at the time that Regal bought Ultra for some $5 billion. So the scary figure is paper, not exactly on cash. The stock is trading nearer to 15 times next year's real profit. Regal's revenue is $5.9 billion today, up more than double what it was 5 years ago. Its free cash flow has more than doubled to $893 million in tandem. So it's deploying that cash wisely, paying down its debt quickly, and that's going straight to the bottom line. That combination of rising earnings and a modest price gives Regal a PEG ratio near 1. So I want to point out that Regal is a rare company that can build a humanoid, its whole joint, and it still trades right about where you want to own it. Now, we go from the moving joint to knowing where it is. That leads us to Allegro Microsystems, the chip maker whose sensors tell every joint in a robot exactly where it is and how fast it is turning. Humanoid has dozens of joints, so you have one chip to sense the position of each joint and another to drive its motor. This is where Allegro's story gets really interesting. The company has a simple ladder of how much silicon goes into a machine as it gets more capable. For example, there are about $5 of Allegro's chips in a robot vacuum. A factory robot costs about $55. A human altogether, $150 or so. So as robots go from vacuums to walking machines, Allegro gets about 30 times the value out of each one. It already has a design that fits almost 90 of its chips in the joints of a single robot. Yes, the company is a cyclical chip business that suffered a downturn brutal enough to put it briefly in the red. And then the AI data centers got it out again. Now it accounts for 1/10 of all its sales, more than quadrupling, as revenue soared 23% in a single year, and its free cash flow multiplied almost 6 times over a record $125 million. The real trick here is that the market is already falling in love with it. It's pushing the stock to its most expensive valuation ever, and its first robot wins with Chinese makers, not American ones. Now there is a foreigner doing the same job over the counter. That's Melexis, a Belgian chip maker that makes the same magnetic position sensors and has made one specifically for a robot's joints. It is sensitive enough to tell me where it is turning. And now, the next sense to apply to robots is touch. It may be the most neglected of all senses. A robot that doesn't have a sense of force is pretty much useless in the real world because if it would crush an egg, it would lose its balance or it would break your hand when it shook it. So humanoids need force sensors in their wrists, ankles, and fingers. And that's the one layer that the big supply chain studies say is the most wide open opportunity left because nobody's built the standard part yet. Now, one of the best choices is Novanta with the symbol NOVT, which builds the leading 6-axis force sensor. It's the same element that gives a robot arm a sense of touch and owns Celera Motion, which makes the controllers that turn sensing into precise movement. So it sells 2 of the hardest items to get in the whole robot. In the past decade, its revenue has grown from $374 million to nearly $1 billion, more than doubling. Now it's partnered with NVIDIA to drop its sensors into NVIDIA's robot platforms. Novanta does not break out revenue from its robots, and the medical business is actually its biggest near-term growth. Now for the pure of the pure, there is Vishay Precision Group, symbol VPG. They make the foil strain gauge, a 100-year-old piece of precision engineering that is the real sensing element inside most of the force and load sensors going into robot wrists. This may be the only American pure play on force sensing you can buy, but the fundamentals tell a somewhat cautious story. Its revenue has been flat at around $300 million for the past few years, and its earnings have just plunged to a cyclical low from 2.6% a share at the 2022 peak to around 40 cents. But the stock still re-rated to an all-time high on humanoid hope alone, despite humanoid revenue being less than 1% of sales. Let's go to the site for a robot with Cognex, ticker symbol CGNX. Cognex is the world leader in machine vision. It's the technology that gives a robot eyes, but it's the AI inside that makes it special. Its edge learning software trains the system to tell a good part from a flawed one off just a handful of images, no data scientists required, and its newest cameras put that AI directly onto the camera itself, one line running on chips and another on NVIDIA. This turns a simple sensor, a Cognex camera, into an edge computer that thinks where it sees. Once one of these systems is wired into a production line, it stays there for years, because to remove it means revalidating the whole line. That's the kind of moat that 40 years of vision software and a brand synonymous with the category has really built for itself. Cognex revenues have roughly doubled over the past decade to close to $1 billion, and like many of these, it moves in cycles, but it is coming out of its 2023 low with revenues up more than 24% and earnings more than doubling from the year before. All the recoveries? It is one end market, logistics, and warehouse automation. Its largest division is now growing double digits for 9 straight quarters as e-commerce continues to build out. And none of that is even close to humanoid robots yet. Each of these is still taking orders from a brain. The brain is only 6% of the robot's cost, but is key to making them mainstream. Here, NVIDIA wins both ways. On the robot itself, it has Jetson Thor, a tiny onboard computer that allows the machine to see, think, and respond in real time. Back at the data center, it sells the second brain. This is the one that trains these robots, that runs fleets of them. Those data centers? Yeah, they already run on NVIDIA chips. Everybody is chasing a cheaper brain, of course, and the fight has really started with Qualcomm building a humanoid-specific chip called Dragonwing. Big auto names NXP, Texas Instruments, and Infineon all ship silicon aimed at robots. But if you're looking for the fastest learning, most efficient brain on the market, NVIDIA still has the goods. This robot revolution is a purely NVIDIA brainchild. Everyone else is trying to play catch-up. And now, the most basic things you can get are one of the most important features of a robot for some strange reason. And this brings us to the raw material itself, which is MP Materials, ticker symbol MP. It's the only American company that owns the entire rare earth magnet chain from a mine in California to a finished magnet under one roof. Magnets are the hidden soul of the whole robot. Every high-torque motor, every joint in a humanoid, and every electric car rely on permanent magnets. Remember, in the beginning, I said China controls about 90% of the processing, and that is exactly why the Department of Defense stepped in. They bought a stake big enough to become the MP's largest shareholder and guaranteed the company a floor price on its key material for 10 years. They had a deal to buy all the output of its new factory. That's not a stock you go and buy on earnings because there's really no earnings yet. Revenue jumped from under $70 million to about $275 million. But MP's business is still money-losing. All this infrastructure is built with spent cash, like $300 million or so. But what you are really buying is a factory, and it makes some 1,000 tons of magnets a year in its existing plant in Texas. The one next to it going up is built for 10,000. That's like a 10 times jump. Production is expected in 2028. The winners tend to be the companies who already know how to build complex hardware by the million in the mass production phase. These two look like they are planting their flag early. We are now at the point where we have one big hole to fill in our framework, the screws in the joints and the gears, and it just happens to be the most valuable parts in a robot and the most scarce. That's where America just so happens to be the skinniest. And at least for the gears I mentioned earlier, you can buy the best in the world with Harmonic drive and Nabtesco over the counter. But the roller screw, which can account for as much as a third of a linear actuator robot, is one of the tightest bottlenecks in the entire machine. The point is the point we started at. You really don't have to guess which robot is going to take it. Sometimes the smarter play is the sum of the parts, where you just want to own everything that goes into it. Many of these names have already been running up high on hype, so you will need some discipline in the game. It's Regal Rexnord, which is still reasonably priced and right about where I'd want to own it today. And then you have Timken, Allegro, Cognex, and Novanta, and all of those things. I feel like they are terrific businesses that their prices have just gone up a little bit faster than the momentum really justifies. Next, we have MP Materials and Vishay Precision. There are speculative swings, but MP is really betting on America, and America is kind of betting on it. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to this channel.